Hello and welcome once again to Simplicity for Agility. I'm happy you're joining me for a cutting chai, and today I'm going to share with you my thoughts on backlog refinement. Just a word of caution before we start. This is not to preach you or any team that what they should be doing. This is just to share with you how our teams do that. And since it works for us, there is a good chance it will work for you also. Sometime back, maybe few years back, it was being referred as backlog grooming. Today it is mostly referred as backlog refinement. Maybe after a few years it will be called something else. But all said and done, the purpose remains the same. It should help us to take value to the market as early as possible, and it should help us to take the relevant value to the market as early as possible. This process of backlog refinement revolves around a few questions, and some of them are how valuable this would be for the market. When I say this, it means generally the user story. And we must understand that we cannot decide the value of a user story. It is generally perceived by the market. So when we say how valuable it will be for the market, it forces us to think from the market's perspective. One customer's opinion is not market opinion. Second question what we should be considering about is how costly this would be to build, which brings us to the question of how much effort is would be involved in building this. And more complex generally leads to more effort. More ambiguity generally leads to more effort. Next is, have we sliced this enough into thin slices? Why we pay so much emphasis on slicing? Because so often we treat every user story also as a hypothesis, and slicing it and delivering it in slices helps us to validate our hypothesis early and helps us to do course correction also if required. And many times what we observe is even few slices also can take a great amount of value to the market rather than entirely developing and shipping the story. Next one, what we consider is, do we have enough acceptance criteria for this user story? This forces us again from thinking about the user story from end user's perspective, and it forces us to think about all the nitty-gritties involved. Lastly, is this needed now or can it wait? Generally, we tend to build the what can be producing the highest ROI. So all the stuff is not required in a product at the early stage. Quite a lot of portion of the product can wait for the later portion. This also helps us to minimize the to-do list and maximize the not to-do list. Refinement works best when all the team members participate and contribute to that. So right from tester to PO to developers to architects, etc. Backlog refinement is also more or less a continuous activity and not a one-time effort. And it helps any developer to pull the most suitable work item. And it will also help to prioritize the next sprint much easy. So that brings us to the prioritization of work items. I have seen many teams follow Moscow method. Few of them prefer to do RICE methodology. What we do is consider the ROI of each work item and go by the ROI, which means we explore and try to gauge value each work item would deliver and the cost each work item would incur. When it comes to cost, we know that all work items are not of the same complexity and they don't require same effort. Some are pretty simple, some are moderate, etc. So gauging the cost of each work item is mostly inward facing job. About the value, again, all user stories are not of the same value to the market. And we prefer to go by this mantra of FPGP, the frequency, the population of users, the gain it will add to the product and the market, and the pain it will involve in absence of this functionality. We also consider few other aspects, but mainly it revolves around FPGP mantra. So all user stories or user story slices are not of the same value, and gauging this value is mostly outward facing job. So if we have value and cost, we will have fair idea about the ROI of each work item. Along with the ROI, we also like to consider the life cycle where this work item would be required. And if we consider the slices of a user story, then imagine a user story of building a wiper for the car. Then the bare minimum wiper would be required pretty early, but water jet for the wiper or rain detection wiper, these functionalities or these enhancements can be done a bit later in the life cycle of a wiper production. If I think and decide about importance of this slice, complexity and effort involved for this slice, the life cycle of this slice, whether it is required in alpha or MVP, etc., and the acceptance criteria for this slice. Based on these four things, I can have a far better understanding of this user story slice, and then I can freeze it. Before freezing it, having an agreement that we know the specs and the scope of this user story brings in some structure. Having this structure helps us to understand the life cycle of a slice and the complexity and business value of each slice. The last thing we consider in the refinement process is whether this work item has dependency on any other work item. And these are the user story slices we have. If any user story slice is having a dependency on any other thing, having visibility to that dependency certainly greatly helps us. So with clarity on these four aspects, what we call is a well-refined backlog, and that makes development work a bit easy to manage. This is the backlog screen, what we observe for populating a sprint backlog from user story slices backlog. This shows the dependency. Having visibility of dependency at the time of populating sprint backlog certainly helps. You have clear visibility about the life cycle and the ROI of that backlog item. So all these items above this red line are required pretty early in alpha stage. All these items above this black line are required for MVP, which should be done just soon after alpha. This can be done later, and this can wait. One user story, when made into slices, it is not necessary that all the slices of that user story belong to the same life cycle phase. For example, this user story has got two slices but one is required pretty early in alpha stage and another can wait till RTM. A well-refined backlog provides a thumb rule so that any developer can pull a backlog item which will more or less ensure the most relevant value is shipped to the market. And it also makes the sprint planning comparatively easy and a structured activity. That's all I wanted to share with you today. I hope you enjoyed your cutting chai. If you want to share your thoughts with me or if you want to know more about this, let me know. I will be happy to hear from you. Have a great day.